Webinar room is open. We'll give it a couple seconds for people to make their way in.
Awesome. Love it.
Glad that you could be here today with us, Stan.
I'm so excited to be here with you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. All right, we'll go ahead and kick things off, I guess. So welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Keith Spencer, and I'm one of the career experts here at FlexJobs. And FlexJobs, for those of you who don't know, has been the most trusted site for remote job listings since 2007. We are thrilled to have as our guest today Stan Miller from Storicate to discuss turning interviews into offers. Stan is a professional trainer and storyteller who's been helping transform the way professionals narrate their career journey for years. And we are very excited to have him present this webinar with us today. Before we dive into Stan's presentation, I do want to cover a few housekeeping items. This will be a 60-minute webinar that includes a presentation with Stan, followed by an audience Q&A. This webinar is being recorded, and the recording will be emailed out to everyone later this week. If you have a question that you would like to ask Stan, please make sure to type that into the Q&A section rather than the chat section. You can also use the thumbs up button in the Q&A section to vote up any other questions that you'd also like to hear the answer to so that we know which questions are most popular. We probably won't be able to get to every question today, but we are fully confident that you'll still learn something helpful. So with all of that said, I would now like to turn things over to Stan. Welcome, Stan, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much, Keith. Thank you for you and the team at FlexJobs. You all are awesome, and I know everyone on this call already knows that. Thank you all for being here. Before we dive in, I noticed that the chat is already on fire, which is great. So do drop in where you are dialing in from. I want to see how far we're reaching today. I see people from Sweden, Austin, Virginia. Hope, hello. I see, let's see, Ariana from San Diego's here. New York's in the house. Colorado. Looks like California. A lot of people in Texas too. Colorado, Toronto. Thank you all for being here. I feel loved that you would spend about the next 60 minutes with me. And so as I see you all just going crazy in the chat and just letting us know where you're from, we're from everywhere. I love that. Today's topic is one that I care so deeply about, and that is how to turn interviews into offers using storytelling. You see, I've figured something out that most professionals will miss throughout their entire career, which is experience alone doesn't win interviews. I'm going to say that again for you. Experience alone doesn't win interviews. Trust does. And our ability to tell our career stories is the greatest influencer of that trust. And when we do this right, it gives you an unfair advantage in interviews and every single area of your career. Now, when we do this wrong, it virtually guarantees that we will not be selected. And so we're going to be together for the next hour. You're going to notice that my voice is a little baritone there. It's not because that I have this natural great voice. It's actually, I have a little bit of a cold and I'm congested. So please give me some grace if I have to stop and take a drink. I hope you're okay with that. Now, by the end of our time together, you'll know how stories can open doors, build trust, and get you chosen in interviews without memorizing scripts or over preparing, or without those long-winded stories or rambling that we all hate, or that dreaded overselling yourself. And some of you, I think, probably can relate to that. Now, if you're in for this journey, just type "I'm in" the chat so I know that you are with me. Just type "I'm in." Okay, Carmen, thanks a lot. Chris, Angelica, Lisa, I see you. Okay. Now, you are in the right place if you have put in some years of experience, you've built your experience, and you've been in your career and you've been checking boxes. But somehow now you're in a place where you're still not getting picked. Now, some of you in this room are unemployed, looking for gainful employment, and some of you are employed and looking for that next thing. Now, most of you in this room, I'm guessing, are pretty good on paper, but when it's time to speak, things get a bit fuzzy. Now, maybe you ramble or overshare or even freeze up when someone says, "Tell me about yourself." You know that you've done the work, but you can't seem to communicate it in a way that sticks. Now, a lot of us are tired of feeling invisible in rooms we deserve to stand out in. And when we're done, when we're done and when we're moving in our career, many times we're watching less experienced people get roles, get recognition, get the offers that we deserve. So I'm all in today, by the way, to help you fix this. Now, in this session, I'm going to share why your story is the ultimate secret weapon to turn interviews into offers. Now, you can only get this if you stay with me until the end, so please do that. Um, Once you learn to tell the right story the right way, you don't just answer questions, you leave a lasting impression. Now, I want you to think about this. Can you imagine how different your next interview would feel if your story did all the heavy lifting for you? I'll reveal also why you can't afford to miss out on any opportunities to show your value in this training. I'm also going to reveal how you can use I'm going to reveal these in this training, 3 proven storytelling techniques to attract job offers when you are interviewing. Now, there's a structure to stories that win trust, and when you pull the right levers in your story, offers follow those levers. Now, I guess I'll ask you a question. Would it be helpful if you had a repeatable way to tell stories that actually can influence decisions in interviews? If you want that, just drop yes in there so I know you're with me. Now, we also are going to cover what criteria 99% of hiring managers use when they are selecting talent, which, by the way, is a game changer. Now, here's a spoiler alert. This is not your resume. It's not the fancy degrees that you have. It's how you make people feel. And what we're going to cover today is, we're going to tap into the real decision-making process that happens. And I want you to know from me, I've worked with hundreds and even thousands of people on this decision-making process to get them from interview to offers. Now, I'm going to share my story with you, and maybe you'll relate to this. I spent over 15 years of my career believing one thing, and that was heads down, hard work would speak for itself. I thought that loyalty and performance would earn trust, promotions, and eventually security. So I said yes to every single project. I worked late on the decks. I prepped the ops reviews. I was, in my corporate experience, the dependable high performer. Maybe that is you. But when new opportunities came in my way, there was always something that I felt like I had left to prove. So I was stuck proving myself. I watched roles go to people with half my experience, and eventually the reorganizations caught up with me and I was let go. Now, it was in that valley that I ran into a coach and I hired a coach. And on one of the coaching calls I had, this coach said to me something that changed how I viewed my career forever. And he said, Stan, you're not being seen for the impact you create. You're being seen for the tasks that you complete. I'm going to say that again. He said, you're not being seen for the impact. You're being seen for the tasks. That's when I realized that I wasn't lacking experience or preparation. Many of you aren't lacking experience or preparation. I was lacking this intentional approach to shape how others experienced me. I was sharing information in meetings. I was not crafting experiences. I was selling myself, selling performance instead of creating connection with other human beings. That moment for me flipped everything. I stopped seeing communication as a soft skill and started treating it like a human skill, one that actually drives everything, one that drives everything else. Now, I became a student of storytelling through this process, and that decision alone changed the trajectory of my career from mid-level leader to director, then to SVP, and eventually Chief Sales Officer at my organization in just 3 years. And now the beautiful part of my world is the work that I do today is about helping others make the shift that I was able to achieve through Story. From proving your value to communicating that value with confidence, clarity, and connection. Now, enough about me. We're in this together, so we're going to have to lock in, and I'm going to need your voice in the chat here. And some things today will be taught and others will be caught. I'm going to say that again. There are going to be some things today that I teach you that will be taught, and other things are just going to be caught. Not every piece of information that I share with you today is for you, but I'm confident that if you spend all your time with us today, that the sum of that time will be valuable. So let me set the stage. This session is going to feel a little different. So again, if you decide to stay till the end, I've got something very, very special for you. So you don't want to leave this session early. And I know it's probably full at this point. So let's go with technique 1, which I call building trust. Now, we've all heard this. If you've heard that knowledge is power, just drop yes in the chat. Knowledge is power. If you've heard knowledge is power, drop yes in the chat. Okay. A lot of us. I mean, I can't even keep up with the number of yeses here coming in. So naturally, when it's time for us to prepare for interviews, we show up ready to prove what we know. We stack credentials, we prep our bullet points, we build a case for hiring us like a lawyer trying to win the jury. Because deep down, we think if I just give them enough proof, they will pick me. But here is the truth. People do not choose you based on proof alone. They choose based on belief. And belief is emotional. It's felt. It's not calculated. Now, they're not asking, are you the smartest person in the room? They're actually wondering, do I trust you when things get hard and when things get tough? Now, let me ask you this. I want you to drop me in the chat if you've ever walked into a room for an interview fully prepared, but walked out unsure if they actually understood you. Okay, I've got a lot of people. All right, I'm in the right place. Because in my opinion, folks, this is the real gap. It's not your skills. The skills are table stakes. Like if you made it to the interview, the skills, you have the skills. It's how you make them feel in the interview. It's how you make them feel in the interview. So I'm going to do something a little bit daring here. I'm going to stop sharing, and you should now see me front and center. Now, when you see me front and center, I'm going to move to a whiteboard experience. Now, this is going to feel a little different for some of you. So I'm using a little technology here. Now, what I want to review with you is something that I call the circle of trust here. Okay. Now, this is the number one criteria for how talent is selected, and that is simply trust. So we know the reason we get picked is because we are trusted. Anyone in this room would answer yes to this. Like, have you ever picked somebody for a job or to do something for you that you haven't trusted? The answer most likely is no. No, I don't do that. I do choose yes to people. I say yes to people I trust. Okay. So this is the number one criteria. Okay. Now, this is a recipe for you with 3 ingredients. All right. Now, the first part of the recipe is, do you have the skills? And so if you are trying to build trust in an interview, you need the skills. You need to show that you have the skills. The second part of the recipe is people want to know how you behave. So we've got skills and we've got behaviors. Do I have the skills? Can they determine how you will behave when doing the work? Now, sometimes they use this word in corporate settings that is often referred to as cultural fit. Is this person a fit? Well, really what it is behaviors. It's actual behaviors. How is this person going to behave? The third and final recipe item here is going to be your approach. Now, when you step into an interview and you can communicate your skills and you can communicate how you behave, and they gain access to how you approach solving their problems, you have earned the right to be trusted. You've earned the right to be trusted. Now, how do you do this? Well, you take this recipe, and all of this recipe is applied to the stories and the things that you communicate about your experiences, the stories you tell. Okay? And so this is just a quick example of a way to mentally prepare for an interview. So if you're preparing for your interview by memorizing, if you're preparing by learning how to think about the questions that they're going to ask, that's fine. Not the best way to do things, in my opinion. But if you're actually saying, okay, in my communication, the experiences that I share, if I can share that I have used skills, that I behave very predictably, and I can articulate an approach to solving problems similar to the ones that this employer has, I am more likely to earn trust, and trust will beat out all the experience from the other candidates. Okay, so that is one thing that I wanted to share with you. I'm going to jump back here to another screen. So let me just jump back here. All right, so now you should see. And this is what I want to get this to you, because you should know that your expertise and skills will get you into these rooms for interviews, but your story will earn you a permanent seat. Your story will earn you a permanent seat in the room. Something that you should know is that if they invite you into that room for an interview, they've already said yes to you. Most people don't understand this concept. If you are invited into an interview, there is something that they have seen about you that has already made them say yes to inviting you into that environment. Now, you're starting your interview on a yes, but most people are preparing to prove themselves when they just simply want you to show them that their initial instinct was right about you. So when you get invited into a room, it's a yes. What changes that yes is how you communicate. So you either convince them that they are right about you from the beginning, or they meet you and they experience you and they say, well, maybe I wasn't right about this person. And everything about that has to do with how you show up. Now, we talk about trust as the number one criteria. And in order to establish trust, we need to influence a decision. We need to connect. So technique 2 is all about connection. You don't need perfect answers. You need stories that influence beliefs. But if you believe that I'll prepare the perfect answer, if I can explain everything I've done, I'll prove that I'm good enough, that's the wrong approach. It's simply the wrong approach. I want you to write this down. If you have something in front of you, I want you to write this down. People don't make decisions based on information. They make them based on belief. Probably one of the most important things that I'll share with you today. People don't make decisions based on information. They make them based on belief. So if you're preparing all your STAR stories, because that's what you were told to do, situation, task, action, result, And they tell you STAR is a story, but STAR is not a story. STAR is an information sharing mechanism. STAR is designed for them to capture information from you, not to capture a story. The reason that STAR was created, in my opinion, was because companies don't trust people to give them the information they need to make a decision. But if you know how to tell stories, you certainly do know how to deliver that experience in a way that connects with them emotionally. So all my STAR lovers in the room, don't get mad at me now. But STAR is not story. And if you're being told that STAR is the way to go, sure, that is a way to go. But STAR is like my Volkswagen sitting in my, and I have a Volkswagen. It's sitting in my driveway today, and I could take it and get from my house to downtown Orlando, where I live, and get back safely from A to B and then back to A. But story is like the Porsche. It'll get me from A to B and back to A, but boy, it is sure a different ride. It feels different. It feels different. So what happens is we're preparing for a performance, not connection. So you study, you rehearse, hundreds of scenarios that make you feel ready. And that approach, by the way, builds false confidence, because you and I both know when you get into these interviews, you can't tell what question they're going to ask you. You studied hundreds of questions and you might get some of those questions. But the minute you get a question because you're overstudied, the minute you get a question that takes you off the road, what happens? One unexpected question slips you up. I know that. Your mind goes blank. Alexandria, yes, your mind goes blank. That says it all. You said it, not me. Even the best memorizers can sound impressive, right? But oftentimes they lack believability. We know this to be true, yet we still try to memorize our answers. This is when trust breaks and attention fades, folks. Now, what does this look like? Eric, I know that your mind blanks out. I get it. Yes, this is true. It happens. Now, what does this look like in real time? So I have helped hundreds of people with this process of telling stories and taking what's in their brain and how they think about stories. And here's the biggest takeaway. What's in your mind is and what is your story in your mind that often comes out through your voice is not exactly what your audience needs to understand that story. So what we do is we use what's in our mind and we tell it in chronological order. And when we do that, this is what we get. Most people feel like this when they're telling their career story. Now, I want you to look at this, evaluate it. Tell me in the chat, have you done this before? Have you felt like this? Do you know someone who's dealing with this? Just drop a yes. There's no shame in this room. If this is, I remember when I was interviewing, I at the end of the interviews, I was apologizing because they took too long. Come on, people. We know this is true. How do we change it? I see the yeses are flooding right now. I love that. Thank you all for being honest. Now, I just want to tell you Rachel's story because I think this is just the right time to tell this story. Rachel was a client of mine. She was a brilliant customer success leader who had just been laid off. Now, she had 7 interviews, final rounds, and no offers. I mean, always getting to the final round. I don't know if that's you, but she's gotten more than 1 round with no offers. Now, on paper, she crushed it. But every opportunity collapsed in the final stretch. Why is this happening? This is what she asked me. Because her preparation became her pressure. She was walking into interviews trying to impress and completely forgot what made her irresistible in the earlier stages of the interview. So she thought with every single interview, I had to just get better. And that was a lot of pressure. So we reset, we refocused, and we talked about bringing a level of consistency to her story over the scattered evidence that she had. And we built some messaging for her around connection, not performance. Now, weeks later, she landed an offer. This is how it works. It is calculated. So now let me get back over. Do I have permission? Just give me a yes if I have permission to get back on a whiteboard with you. And are we good? Like, can I just teach you all some things today? Okay. Are we going to do a little freestyling here today? Let me get back to a whiteboard here. Give me 1 second. All right. Let me get back to a whiteboard. Okay. So let's talk about the simplicity of storytelling. Now, you have and these are going to be different circles here. They're probably going to be different shapes. So I'm going to just freestyle it a bit. I want you to understand that there are two parties in your interview. There is a storyteller and there is a story listener. Now, the storyteller is you. You are telling the stories. The story listener is them. Okay. Very simplistic approach to storytelling here, by the way. Your number one job is to share experiences. Their job, which is you must recognize this, their job is to make meaning. And I'm going to give everybody in this room a reality check. If you are sharing your experiences and you are making it difficult for them to make meaning of your experiences, you are hurting yourself in your chances of getting an offer. So what happens? It's really about what you say. And it's about what they believe. So what we want to do is walk the tightrope between what we're saying and what they believe. But make no mistake, this is a tightrope. This is a tightrope. And, the winds pick up. The longer you go, you're underwater here. And you could easily simply just be hanging on by a thread here. But if the longer you take to get the plane off the ground in your stories, the minutes go by and the winds pick up and it starts raining and it's cloudy. And all of a sudden we're dealing with your stories are too long. You start to doubt. You start to overshare. And all of these things are happening to us. Okay? All of these things are happening. But what can happen is if you share stories in your interview, those stories can become narratives. Now, this is very interesting, and I think you're going to find it interesting because some people think stories and narratives are the same thing. They're not. Stories are the moments that you share, the things that you will share with other people, how they experience you. Narratives are what's in their brain that causes them to build an opinion of you or believe you. So narratives build belief. So narratives, if we think about this, are strictly for our audience. Narratives influence beliefs. How do we know this is true? Well, I'll give you a very practical example of how this works. You watch News Channel A and you watch News Channel B. You give News Channel A 1 hour, you give News Channel B 1 hour. News Channel A tells you a story. News Channel B tells you the same story. But News Channel A is telling you a story in a way that's building a narrative that is different than News Channel B is telling you the same story, same experiences in a different way to build a different narrative or belief system. So the more you communicate your stories and the better you are at it, it actually builds belief systems in your audience. And this is how we make decisions. They have to believe. The best stories win. We know this is true in media. If you glue yourself to one media outlet, you're going to develop belief systems. you will start to believe what that media outlet is telling you. If you glue yourself to a different media outlet, you will start to change your mind and believe what that media outlet is telling you. So, my point to you in this section is that if you are telling stories that are good enough to build narratives, what's in your audience's belief system, they will trust you and build belief systems that make them say yes to you. They will believe that you can do the job. But if you're sharing star stories and just information and proving yourself and selling yourself, you don't have an opportunity, because that's not what we want in our brain. We don't actually desire that. So this is a way to think about this. This is a paradigm shift that I want you to try to embrace. Now let's go ahead and get back to where we are. Okay. Now, technique 3 is, and this is a question, like, how would you feel if I could give you a story pattern that could help you show your value without making you the hero in every single story you tell? And Juliana, I know that they're telling you they want star. Trust me when I tell you, story checks every single box in star. I'm going to show you how that works. Okay, so I'm glad you said that. All right. The truth is, the most persuasive stories aren't about what you did, they're about who you helped. All right, Cheryl wants the pattern. Okay, some people want patterns. We're going to get them. I'm going to get them to you. Okay, technique number 3 is about pattern. Stories are told in patterns, and you need to know that. Okay? We need to understand that patterns in storytelling exist. And so let me share one with you that I use, that I've developed, that I think you'll like. So this is a simple storytelling pattern that is, this is a game changer for most people that I work with. Stories operate in arcs. If you know anything about stories, you're going to know that. Now, stories have a start, a middle, and an end. Now, what happens at the beginning of every great story? Well, Luke meets Yoda, or Luke meets Obi-Wan, or Katniss meets Haymitch, or Rocky meets Mick, or Morpheus or Neo meets Morpheus. We know that exists in stories, okay? So I just want to ground you on that. So if you understand that, just drop a yes. You understand that a hero or a main character meets a mentor. Yes, hero's journey. Very similar. Yes. Okay. We think that the hero's journey and all of these frameworks and patterns that are for blockbuster movies are only for screenwriters. I'm going to share with you today that that's not true. Okay. So I have developed a pattern for storytelling called the 4 Ps of story. Now, this framework is going to help you get yourself into a position where you can tell a very clear, crisp story in a short period of time that can have emotional connection and that can help your audience build belief. The first part of it is introducing what I call a protagonist, okay? We introduce a protagonist or a main character in the story. Now, this is the most important thing I can share with you today. You don't have to be the hero in your own stories. It's okay. You're going to be in the story, but make it about them. Who is them? Well, it's the project. It's your peer that you helped. It's your boss that you helped. It's the company you worked for. It's just not you. Why do we do this? Because we need to pull ourselves out of the main character position to let our audience know that we are a qualified pathfinder. Now, hero mentor dynamics exist here. Hero mentor dynamics exist here. A protagonist, what qualifies a protagonist? Someone would ask that question if we had the mic open. Well, they have to have problems, they have to have desires, and there has to be consequences. Now, in the Hunger Games, Katniss had some problems. She was living in a poor district. They were having the Hunger Games. Her sister got picked, and she decided to go and replace her sister. There's some heavy consequences. What is the consequence? Death. I could not live through this. Heavy, heavy consequence. Now, that's not going to be the case in all your career stories, but do you have a hero or a main character that you can talk about when asked a question? Tell me about a time when that had some problems, that had some desires. And by the way, there were some pretty significant consequences that they were facing. I think the answer is yes. Now, if you introduce them, that takes the spotlight off of you. Don't worry, you're in the story as the empathetic. So you need empathy and authority. So when you were talking about yourself in your career stories, you pivot from who you were helping, what they wanted, what their problems were, what the consequences were, to why you even care. Show them that you had some empathy for your audience. Why do you care? I care because I was in that position in a past role, so I really wanted to help serve them. Now, authority, we don't like talking about ourselves. Easy fix. Well, I think what my director who picked me to do this would probably say about me is these three things. You see how I just did that? Like, it takes the onus. The best way to share your value is to say what other people would say about you. Now, some of you are thinking, well, this doesn't show that, and maybe this shows my lack of confidence. Absolutely not. What someone else says about you is way more important than what you say about yourself. I hate to tell you, but that is authority. You cannot grant yourself authority. Other people grant yourself, just like you haven't ever given yourself a job offer. That is them granting you authority to come help us do this big thing. Transfer of authority, very important. Now, we get moving to the next part of the third P, which is the pathway. The pathway is a 3-step process, and I like to call them milestones. Now, some of you are in technical fields and you have 47 steps to your processes, and this is where your stories get stuck in the ditch, okay? We're going to keep you out of the ditch in your stories, and you're going to lay out the 3 milestones that you helped your protagonist achieve, the 3 things, the 3-step process that you had for them that is your secret sauce. Guess what? They're hiring you because of how you think. This is your opportunity to share with them how you thought about this problem and how you solved it. 1, 2, 3. After you do that, you are going to land the plane in a payoff. When you land the plane, it is about them and you. It's always them first. So how do I close a story? Simple. Well, as a result of our work, we were able to solve these problems. They were able to reach these desires, and they avoided these unnecessary consequences that we were all facing in the business. You see, I'm just closing the loop in the story. I'm just closing the loop. So a proper story starts with a main character or protagonist with problems, desires, and consequences, who has a qualified pathfinder, you, who has empathy and authority, sharing a pathway for that protagonist that is a 3-step process, and clearly ending in a payoff. And by the way, at the end of the story, when you land the plane and when you're on the ground safely and everybody's feeling good, you just let your audience know how that made you feel. You end it with your own emotion and why you told the story. Now, this is very different than Star, folks. I'm sorry. It's very, very different. This is going to be a very different experience. So this is what I teach in a quick summary of how I teach it. This is just a framework. I'm just giving you a bit of my storytelling methodology. Okay. Now, some of you are in this room and you're not even able to get to an interview. And I understand that. And I'm sorry about that because it's tough. And I know that. Nothing that I'm sharing with you today is going to fix that problem, to be honest. But here's what I want for you. I know some of us in this room are obsessed about getting to the interview process. And I totally understand that. And that's fair. It's fair. It's tough. But here's what I want for you. When you do get the interview, I actually want you to get the job. I don't want you to wait all this time for that perfect interview, the job that you're excited, the opportunity you're excited about, and then blow it. So Larry was a client of mine. I want to talk to you about him. He had wrapped up a 30-year career at a big telecom company. He was a respected leader. He was known internally. He was admired by his peers, but he was almost invisible outside of his company, right? He called me and he had already made really smart moves. He had a new resume. He had updated his LinkedIn profile, all the things that you may be doing. He was getting interviews. The problem was his story had no structure and he had too much story. He had so much experience. He didn't know what to share. 30 years of experience and no clear way to prioritize what mattered inside of the room. So he kept getting in front of the right people and he wasn't closing. And then Amazon came calling. And Amazon was one of the most rigorous interview processes out there. And by the way, Amazon told Larry, just like you're in your mind, you're saying star for my star people out there. Amazon said, you must come with stories about our 16 principles of leadership, and you must deliver those in star stories. Now, we worked on one thing, getting crystal clear on the stories, not in the star methodology that he needed to tell, and not everything he could tell, though. And here's what happened. Larry left his job thinking he would never make as much money as he made before. He did get an offer, but not just any offer. He landed a role with a 20% increase after he convinced himself that the market wouldn't match what he had made before. And this is why it happens, because when you can cut through the noise and tell the stories that matter, you stop selling your past and start creating confidence in your future. And that's actually what happens. So has anybody in the room ever said to themselves that I'm just not a really good storyteller? Has anyone said, I'm just not great at telling stories? Or maybe you think you're great, but then people just don't react to you. Okay. Here's what you need to know. Storytelling isn't a talent. It's a human skill that you can actually learn. Yeah, Jeff, I've told myself, man, I'm a terrible salesperson, especially early in my career. I'm like, I just am not a good salesperson. And I ended up being a chief sales officer. It worked out after all. So for those of you that saying that, I'm not great, that's okay. So I'm going to ask you if this session has been pretty good so far and it's been time well spent, just drop a yes. Just let me know how I'm doing. If this has been pretty good so far, drop a yes in the chat for me. So, all right, feeling some love here. We got some yeses going. I think there's probably about 1,000 of you on this call. All right. As valuable as this session can be in 1 hour or close to an hour, we both know, you and I both know, that I can't teach you everything you need in a single webinar. Honestly, not even in a full day. Okay. Because learning to communicate with clarity, confidence, and influence isn't about stuffing more information in your brain. It's about actually rewiring how you show up in the room. That's what it's about. This is why I created something a little bit deeper for you. Now, hopefully you remember my agreement from earlier. I was going to share something with you that I could share and give you, and that's what I want your permission to do. So if I delivered some value to you today, which it sounds like I have, I hope I can share this with you. From the looks of the chat, I've got permission, so I'm going to just take liberty. Okay. So here it is. There's a special opportunity for you to go a little bit deeper with me to get everything you need to know to convert your future interviews into offers. Now, this offer that I'm going to give you comes in two parts. Okay. There's two parts to this offer. Part one is a free communication index. I have built and designed this tool as a diagnostic tool. I need you to figure out where you're going wrong. I need you to get to a place where you know what the problem is. Now, the great thing about this is going to take you about 3 to 4 minutes. If you scan this code on your phone, you can take it now if you'd like. It's going to take you 3 to 4 minutes. It's about 15 to 18 questions. And I want you to answer honestly. Now, in every interview, companies are measuring on 3 things: clarity, confidence, and influence. Can you explain your idea simply? Do you sound credible under pressure? And do your answers stick? That's why I created this index. It is a free, fast diagnostic tool that will reveal your strengths. It will reveal your blind spots. And it's exactly what's holding you back from winning jobs. So this is your starting point. So if you've ever thought, I know I can do the job, I just need them to see it, this is your starting point. Take the index, get your score, and understand what the gaps are so you can help yourself fix them before your next interview. And by the way, Keith is sharing the link in the chat. So if you need this link, please do this. Okay. So that's part one of my offer. Part one. So if you need the link, it's going to be shared. It's also in the handout section of Big Marker here, and so that's something that you can get. Now, special offer number 2 is about taking what you learned from special offer number 1 and putting that into action where we can end some of these gaps. Okay. Special offer number 2 is an interview to offer companion. Okay. This is a course. It is the ultimate interview storytelling guide. Inside this course, you will move from, I hope this connects, to telling the stories that will grab some attention. You'll move from overthinking to clarity. This is a big deal. You'll move from, I hope this lands, to interview answers that create real belief and value. Now, inside this program, you'll get 4 high-impact video trainings. These are the trainings, by the way, that I teach. These are training videos that I taught to my clients. You'll get storytelling frameworks. You're going to get frameworks. You're going to get guides. You're going to get bonus downloads. You're going to get everything you need to deliver stories that make you feel grounded, memorable, and authentic to you. So if you've ever walked out of those interviews feeling like you left something on the table, this is the solution. Okay? This is your solution. Now, it's important you know that number 1 is a free offer. Okay? All transparency here. Number 2, you can only access it if you do number 1. So if you take the assessment, you will be offered the right to buy this digital bundle at my Black Friday rate after you take the assessment. Now, this is optional. I am not here to take a credit card from anyone on this call, because you cannot get where you're going until you know where you are. So this is going to be available for you for a limited time offer. It's the first time, honestly, I've ever done something like this on a call like this. And you are going to be absolutely shocked at the price, the Black Friday price that I have offered this to you at. Okay. You're going to be absolutely blown away. I'm giving you the keys to the kingdom here to help you get your stories on track. And I just want you to think about, when you see this number and how much this is, I want you to think about what the next job and what your salary will be on that next job when they say yes. Because there's a lot that can happen if they say no, which is, again, you don't get to where you're going financially. And from a purpose perspective, if it's something that you're really excited about doing. So that's it. Let's see, Tanisha, you want to know how much it is? Anybody want to know how much it is? Are you all curious? All right. Anybody curious how much it is? Just say yes. I just want to make sure I don't want to offend anybody. All right. It's $27. It's $27. Okay. I have priced this for you, for this group of people at this particular time. It's $27. You have to, in order to get it, you have to take the assessment. When you take the assessment, you will within minutes receive an email that will make you an offer. And I am not minced about my words. I'm going to make you an offer. Okay. It's US dollars. Okay. So that is where I finish for the day. And I want to make sure that I invite Keith back on to navigate us through Q&A, because Keith, we have about 9 minutes and I would just love to answer any questions you all might have. Have you all had fun today? Just give me like a thumbs up or a yes. I mean, I've had like an amazing time today doing this with you all. I hope you all had fun.
I think from the responses in the chat, Stan, I think it's pretty unanimous that people enjoyed the information that you presented. So thank you so much for your time. We do have some questions here, if it's all right with you.
Yes.
Our first question, someone was asking, if you had a book or online resources that kind of summarizes and guides successful storytelling during an interview. I think you just kind of touched on that, but is there anything else that you would like to share in response to that question?
Well, I don't want to let the cat out of the bag, but next year I will be launching a book. I am currently writing a book. Yes.
That's awesome. Very cool.
But the best resource that I have right now is the resource that you get on the other side of that skills index.
Awesome.
And that is enough to help you get from where you are to where you desire to be.
Awesome. I'm excited to hear that you're writing a book. That'll be interesting to read. So thank you for sharing that.
Yes.
Let's see. Next one here. This person is asking, it seems like there's so much emphasis on metrics and focusing on measurable accomplishments. How can an applicant balance that with building trust and or establishing an emotional connection?
So numbers only matter if there are consequences. I want you, whoever asked that, I want to talk to you. Numbers only matter if there are consequences of failure. Sometimes we just bring numbers out because we want to get the KPIs out or the measurables out. But if we don't talk about the consequences, what would happen if we didn't hit the numbers? That is actually what gives the numbers emotion and meaning. That's what gives the numbers emotion and meaning. So if you want to keep emotion, you want to give the KPIs, the measurable outcomes, make sure you do not skip consequences.
I like that. I've never heard it phrased that way before. That's really good, Stan.
Thank you. Thank you, buddy. Appreciate you.
Let's see our next one here. So we have a couple questions, people concerned a little bit about age. So people probably do the math on my work history and find that I am, in this person's words, old, regardless of their experience. So how do you kind of navigate issues related to ageism when you are telling these stories?
Yeah, I mean, I just don't like, some people have this bad habit, Keith, of actually dating themselves by saying 9 years ago, I did this thing. Leave that out of the stories. Yeah. Hey, I remember a time when I was working at this organization doing this thing. They had these problems. They had some pretty big problems. And what we really wanted was this thing. And if we didn't get it, there was some pretty deep consequences. Again, you're going to see like the same pattern told in different ways that exist. And the reason that the pattern works, and of course, I want to acknowledge ageism is real. I do recognize that, Keith. But we sometimes help them by telling, our audience that 15 years ago, I did this thing. Right? 15 years ago, I did this thing. You age yourself as soon as you say something like that. So you got to remove some of that negative or language that is not useful. I don't want to call it negative. Language that maybe isn't useful out of your answers.
Yeah, absolutely. And that actually answers our next question, which was along the same line. Someone was asking, what if your experience is dated? How do you show those skills without inviting ageism? And you don't need to explain to them that the experience is dated.
Yeah. And so, I mean, again, the thing to say here is that you don't necessarily need to put a time on it, put a place on it.
Yeah.
When I was at X company, like I'll say, when I worked at AT&T, we were building a network in Central Florida. And that network was underdeveloped, and we had never sold that product inside of our market. Now, we had made an $800 million metric, investment into the marketplace with no sales team. If they hired me, again, so now I'm already in the Pathfinder section of the story. You see, so it's once you understand the framing, it makes a lot more sense.
Very good. Let's see. We have another question. This person is asking about, length of stories. You mentioned that in your earlier life, you would apologize for talking too long in interviews. So how long should your stories be when you're in an interview?
When you're in an interview, your story shouldn't be longer than 2.5 minutes tops. I mean, I can tell you that you could navigate a story in 2.5 to 3 minutes, make it compelling, keep the interest, put enough tension in a story. By the way, tension is consequence. Consequence is tension. You can add a twist. There are different types of stories that I teach inside of my frameworks. And so, I would say 2.5 to 3 minutes is really absolute max, which is what I would say.
So along similar lines with timing, that uncomfortable pause that you take before answering the question, it's very useful if you want to give yourself a moment to think, but how long is kind of acceptable with that pause after they've asked the question and before you start answering?
I would say about that long.
Okay. Couple seconds.
So there is, when you have to understand, when you take a pause, it actually it shows them that you care. It doesn't ruin your credibility. And some of us think that they think it ruins our credibility when we don't have like an answer. We can't rattle it off the top of our head. No, the pause equals thoughtfulness.
Yeah.
And if we could just understand that, we figure that out into our equation, it'll start to become what comes natural.
Awesome. Let's see. Let's try to squeeze in maybe 2 more quick questions here. Thoughts on taking notes during an interview? Is that acceptable? Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing?
I like to tell them I'm doing it. Yes.
Yeah.
If you communicate, hey, I just want to level set here before we get started, I'm going to be taking some notes during the interview. Is that okay? I just wanted to let you know, because it's not that I'm not paying attention. It actually is that I'm paying attention. I think it's important that I do take notes. Is that okay with you? A lot of times it'll be yes.
Yeah. And I think that's particularly important advice for remote interviews, because if you're on camera, all of a sudden they're looking to the top of your head if you're taking notes. So letting them know ahead of time is really smart.
Yes, it is really the best way to do it. Yes.
All right. And then we'll make this our last question here, Stan. How do you
Sure.
overcome, that freezing during an interview? They ask you a question, your mind goes blank. How do you navigate that situation?
So, the best way to navigate that is to try to get away from a lot of times the reason you freeze is because you're operating in memorization and instead of recalling. So what I train is storytelling for recall. Okay. Memorization will 100% of the time make you freeze.
Yeah.
But if you understand and know the experiences that you've lived, and by the way, you can think like a storyteller. And it's not that hard to think like a storyteller when you understand a pattern. It's just like any other pattern that you learn. If you learn the pattern of storytelling and you communicate in that pattern, you're just moving the experiences inside and outside of that pattern. So you're less likely to freeze up because you're recalling experiences as opposed to trying to memorize what you would say.
That's interesting. Yeah, that speaks to me because I remember the early days after graduating from college. Memorization was what I tried to go with for interviews, and I froze a lot.
Yeah, it is 100% a lot of times because of the way we prepare.
Mm-hmm.
If you prepare to remember, the minute you get a question that's not in the memory bank, you're finished.
I like that. That's a good way of looking at it. All right, Stan. Well, we are at the hour mark, so we'll go ahead and draw to a close. Really appreciate all our attendees joining us today, but thank you so much, Stan, for coming back and joining us again and presenting on this fantastic topic and sharing your valuable insights. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, and I hope everyone takes advantage of the free tool at a minimum. Like do the communication index, get your score. It's there for you. I think I have 1,000 seats. I mean, I just started doing this. I built this tool, so I have 1,000. So hopefully we don't go over 1,000, but maybe we will, and I'll just have to bump my program up. But I appreciate everyone. Appreciate you, Keith and Katie, all the support. If you're on this call, lean into your relationship with FlexJobs. They can really help you. So I'm excited.
Well, we appreciate that, Stan. Thank you again. And to everybody here, we wish you all the best of luck in your job search. Take care.
Thank you all.